Okay, so welcome all, 24th edition of PC Open Discussion on 19th January. So that means by end of this year, we'll be completing our 25th one, which is next week. But okay, let's not waste time. We'll go through the questions, what were left over from the last meeting, or what was sent to me using that Microsoft form. And then we'll go through our discussion about JSON as we talked about last week. So the normals, uh, these links get updated every week. If you are in the meeting, want to be default attendee, and don't want to go through the registration process every week, just put your name and email ID in the chat, and I'll make you default attendee. Okay, so we had some follow-up questions from Brijendra last week about the editable properties on the pages, where he wanted to uh, set the CurrPage dot update and had some issues with the true and all. I see Brijen just joined. Brijen, the update on it is I did some research and it seems a bug, and it seems that there is also an idea submitted by
Okay.
someone on the
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft Idea website.
Okay.
I'll put the links in the recording later on the
Okay.
YouTube recording.
Uh-huh.
But here is example. We would like to provide proper user experience to prevent modification of record in certain scenarios. And this idea is based on the GitHub discussion that I opened earlier, and I'll open it again. But the
Okay.
Microsoft reply is that we are considering adding it to our longer term roadmap. So it's not coming in next version or so.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, but how Microsoft respond to these is based on votes. So if you like, go
Mm-hmm.
to this link and get this voted out. Share
Mm-hmm.
it with your friends, colleagues who work in Business Central, and they can also vote. And
Okay.
if the
Okay.
voting goes to a to to a higher level, they will
Mm-hmm.
kind of expedite this
Okay.
idea.
Maybe you can share the link so I can do that.
Yeah, so I'll add that into the recording YouTube
Okay.
once I do that. So here
Okay.
is the whole discussion as we were going through last week.
Mm-hmm.
It's also same what we were trying to achieve. There are some discussions going back to NAB, Windows client, and then also on the web client. And people are talking about where it is possible and where it is not.
Okay.
Okay, so go through it. Maybe you'll find something that can work for
Mm-hmm.
you, and if
Okay.
not, then you can surely vote for the idea.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Next up, we have was from Dhanraj sir about the differences between API v1 and v2. And while I was doing my research, I found this great article from AJ Kaufman, if I'm spelling his name correctly. And in this article, he talks about what is the difference between API v1 and v2 in a complete detailed manner. So, what has changed? What are the differences? What is nested object? So, all these changes between V1 and V2 are listed in this article. So, I know that Rajbansal is not here right now, but he can surely check it. And if there is still something that he thinks it's missing, I can surely talk about it later someday. There's so much that has been discussed in this article, and I'll suggest everybody who want to see what is the difference between V1 and V2 can go through these technical differences between those two. Then we have this question from Aniket, and I don't see Aniket here. It's about how to change a printer on runtime on running a report in SAS. Example, if a customer has configured multiple printer in printer management, and when they run a report, they want to change and select from available printers. Hmm. Can I actually do it on on-prem? That I can choose a printer while running a report? Anybody know about it? Let me open my
No
doc.
idea.
So the only thing that I know, and this is not only for Business Central, but I'm pretty sure it also works for Business Central SaaS, is you can define a specific printer per report, and I'm pretty sure it'll work in the Business Central SaaS version also. So there is printer management where you define your printer, but then there is a printer selection based on which you can define either report wise that which report should use which printer, or you can define user wise. So let's quickly see that. So one is printer management, where in case of SaaS you can define your cloud printers as one is added. And just kind of for the example, I'll add one more called my test printer. I don't have any details, but I'll just keep it empty. So then I'll have two printers here. If I refresh this page, one is email printer and one is the test printer. Now, I'm not sure how you used to do it on on-prem versions also, to change a printer at the runtime, but you can surely do a printer selection where you can define based on different parameters. So like if I want to run, let's say, report general test, always want to get it printed on my test printer. So any user who runs report 2 with this setting will always go to test printer. Or the other ways, if I want to define that all the reports from Saurabh actually goes to email printer, then all the reports that Saurabh will print will always go to the email printer. And then the third combination is that the user and then a specific report, let's say the check report, it goes to a different printer. So there are three different kind of options that you can set in the printer selection, either for the a specific report going to a specific printer, or all reports from a user going to a specific printer, or a specific report with a specific user goes to a specific printer. So I don't know, Aniket, does that answer your question or not? But I'm still wondering how you used to print or change printer in on-prem versions of Business Central also. Because when I let's go to a report, and this is a Docker container of Sandbox, but I hope when you click on printer, and in this case, because it's on my local, I'll see my local printers. But let me see. Isn't there a report? More options. Reports. Okay. So if I do it a print, then it should ask me about, but because it's my local machine, that's why I guess it's asking me all these printers. But I guess that was the only way on prem where you can choose your existing printer on your local machine. But for cloud, you just have the cloud printers that you can use for the SaaS versions. And then I guess the only thing that you can do is use printer management to choose which printer will be used when you print a report. Anybody else have any idea about this question? Okay. So that's all the questions. And then we have a topic now that was kind of requested by Manish, who is here in the meeting. If anybody else have any questions, we can take them first if required, and then we can jump into the JSON thing that we are going to talk about today.
No sorrow from my side.
Okay, so sounds good. Hmm. Let's talk about JSON. And I kind of heard this name in Dynamics Nav Word when Microsoft introduced the OData web service, because in OData web services, in, if I'm not wrong, in Nav 2013 had an option to kind of get the OData feed output in a JSON format. So as you can read here, it's one of the most common used data exchange format. It's used by, stands for that JavaScript object notification, which is actually a combination of a name and a value pair. So like this RJSON file in all our extension. So this is a name, and then this is the value against that name. So it's just that combination. Now, when that file becomes big, and you have to structure it in an organized way, then anything that is in red kind of plays a key role. So anything that starts and ends with a curly braces is called as a JSON object. Now, a object you can consider as a table in Nav or Business Central. So it's the object that is referred with these curly braces. And then a value name value pair is actually separated by kind of this notation. So each name will have this, first the name, and then this sign, colon sign, and then will have the value pair. And you can have multiple name value pairs, and each value pair is defined or identified with the comma. So as soon as a comma is appears, it means that the new value name combination will will be appearing on your JSON file. Now, the cooler part is that if you think from the perspective of a document in Business Central, like a purchase document or a sales document, a sales document is a combination of a header and lines. So when you have to relate those two elements, then comes the new parameter here, which is called as array, which is notified by this bracket. Now, array, as you can see here, can also have an object, and it can have multiple objects. So like if this notification shows me my sales order, then inside this, I'm showing my sales line, and I can have one or more sales line. So array is a collection that is kind of tied to your main object. So that's kind of the whole summary of a JSON object, and we'll see in our example how we'll kind of generate that JSON file in Business Central. But these are the only four notations that you need to remember, which is a object, and then an array, and then in a colon to separate these two values. And a value can be anything. It can be a number, it can be a string. If it's with the space, you can use double quotes to kind of segregate that. Or values always you will see can have double quotes or not. It can be a number, a boolean, or anything, and we'll see what is available with Business Central JSON object. So here are some rules about the JSON syntax. The data is in always name value pairs, as we discussed. The data is always separated by commas. Curly braces hold the object, as we said, and a square bracket holds array. So the only thing that you kind of need to keep in mind while you're working on JSON is how my JSON object is notified and how my JSON array is notified. Uh, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So let's move ahead and let's actually do something about it. So what I've done is I've created a branch on my GitHub, and it'll be available on the recording later. The link once this get updated, and this is visible now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's assume that we are trying to export the data out of our purchase order table that we have in Business Central. So what we'll do is we'll start creating a code unit. Let me add a new file here, and let's name it as export to JSON code unit.al. Okay. I'll create a code unit, let's say 50,000, and this is my okay. Now, just for example, let's do it for purchase orders. And then, you can apply the same formula anywhere in the Business Central world. So let's create a procedure, T procedure, make it global, and we'll call it export purchase orders as JSON. And we'll have a purchase header here. Purchase header. Now, when we have to do a JSON export, we need a JSON object to start with. So what we'll do is we'll create a purchase order JSON, and there is a object, as you can see here. So we will be only talking for exporting, we'll be only talking about JSON object and JSON array, which is today. And if you want to talk about import, we'll see other two later. So I'm going to create a JSON object for the purchase order that will be selected by the user. Now, once that's defined, as I said, JSON object is always a combination of our value pair combination. So if I do a dot, I'll see that there are so many functions which are available, but then the most common one to add a value into a JSON object is add. I'll do add, and I'll look at the what we call that, the overloads on this. If it shows me, right, my keyboard is not working with this. Why? Control Shift space. Okay, it should work. Okay, so add actually have multiple overloads. It doesn't say at this point. Maybe I did update my Visual Studio. That is why. VS Code. That's why it's giving me a problem. Otherwise, it normally shows you all the overloads that are available. So there are different overloads, but mainly you'll see that there is a key and a value combination. Now, the key normally remains as text, and when you see other overloads on your system, you'll see that the value have all available Navision or Business Central data types that you have. It have text, it have integer, it have Boolean. So whatever you can think of as a data type in Business Central, those all are available as the value option in the add parameter. So you can do anything like we in this one will do, let's say purchase header dot field caption, because I want a caption of a field, let's say number, and then I'll pass the value as purchase header dot number. So the first parameter is the name, which I'm trying to get from the table itself, and the second is the value that I'm trying to get out of it. Let me repeat it for a for some more fields so that we can see that. Sorry, a date, and then purchase header dot order date. Now let's add one more field. Let's say vendor number. What is that? Buy from vendor number. And then purchase header dot buy from vendor number. Okay. So these three will be added into the object, and you can either see it. If you want, you can download it. So let's maybe first try to download this so that we can test is this part working or not. So to download, as we always do, I'll do a temp blob. I'm not going into details. I'm doing this, but it's of type code unit of temp blob, and then I'll need a in stream, I stream of in stream, and a O stream of type out stream, because I'll have to download that file. And if I'm downloading, then I'll need a file name. So export file name of type text. Now once this is done, I'll create a out stream using my O stream. And the coolest part is that in this JSON object that we created, you will see that there are options of write to. Now the write to function on this is actually allows you, yeah, now I can see it, to write it to a string if you want to see it as as a message pop up on your screen, or you can send it to outstream. So these are the two overloads available. So if you want to see it on the screen, you can just pass a string variable, and you know uh, the function will write that data into that string variable, which you can then message out if you want. But in this case, we'll be using the second overload, which is for outstream, which I just created. So I'll do it on outstream. I'll put a condition that if this is exported, because this is actually returning a Boolean, then I want to call my export code, which is I'll generate export file name, which will be my, let's say, hard-coded word purchase order, and then purchase header dot number, and then as it's of extension JSON, I'll have to specify that. This will be my file name, and then I'll do a temp blob dot in stream into my I stream. Once that is done, then I'll use the download from stream using my I stream. No file name, no dialog, sorry, no dialog, no pop-up, and then my file name. So this should actually download my file. Okay. So now once this is done, I'll have to call it on a page. So what I'll do, and I already have the page extension in place, I guess. Oh, I put it into pages. Okay. On my purchase order list where I have added an action. So what I'll do is I'll add a variable of our export to JSON code unit export to JSON, and then I'll call that function. Okay. So the expectation is that it will, let's see what it downloads in our first run. And if there are no problems, then we'll go forward and see what else is possible. As and then we'll kind of understand about the array object in the JSON object. Okay, so here we are. If we go to purchase orders, okay, let's see where is our action. Download JSON. Let's do that. Something got downloaded, and this is a string. The best way to look at it is you can't verify that is the right string or not. Once it gets bigger, you can actually use, there are tools for JSON formatter that can help you into formatting your JSON.
And Saurav, we can also check it from JSON validator. That's
Right.
yes, that auto format and auto validate.
What is that called? JSON
JSON validator.
validator. Okay,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, there are multiple ways to kind of validate what you are generating. So you can validate that is the data is right, is supporting the JSON format or not. So we'll see, we are seeing that the number which is coming from the caption of that table field is 16001, the one that we downloaded. The order date is this, and then the buy from vendor number is 10,000, which is here. So that was the our JSON object that we covered, which is pretty simple with, with the Business Central code that we have just written, that you just have to add the name value combination that you wanted. Now that was kind of the part one of it. Now let's think about how I'll export my purchase lines and then relate it to this particular order. So for that, let's first create a procedure. And in this case, I'll assume that I have this function name as export purchase lines. Okay. And I'll receive a purchase line, suppose on this. And anybody can stop me if you have any questions at any point. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Now, in the same way as we did here, that we created a JSON object, we'll follow the same rule here, and we'll say that this is purchase line JSON, type JSON. Now I can use the same logic, which is purchase line JSON dot add, and let's say purchase line dot field caption, and I'm trying to pass the type, and then purchase line dot type, which is again a name value combination as we discussed earlier. And then other than this, I'll need my, say, number, and I'll type purchase line dot number. Because this is enum, there is an error, so let me format this value. Okay. And we'll take one more field, let's say quantity. Okay. And quantity. Now we need to pay attention to these fields. If any of these field is a flow field, you'll have to do a calc field of, get that calculated before you try to kind of export it out on JSON. Now this will add one purchase line into a JSON object. And now here's the tricky part, is you can have one or more lines in your purchase order. So you want to kind of repeat the same steps which you have written here as multiple times so that you can actually uh, get all the lines into one. And when there are multiple lines that I want to add, then comes into picture a JSON array. So first we'll write the logic to kind of repeat all the purchase lines that are available. So let's create one more function to get the purchase line array, let's suppose, which is based on purchase header. I forgot purchase header. On this, I'll have a local variable of my purchase line, and we'll have the same typical code of our set range based on document type, and then purchase header dot document type, and then I'll have same for a number from purchase header, that is number. Based on these two combination, if I find a purchase line, then I would like to do a repeat until, and till the point it's have lines 0. Now for each purchase line that I find, I actually want to call this function, which will add that particular line into the array, which will require the purchase line. Now what will happen is this function will be called, and this function will then in turn call this, and we'll keep on adding it. But they all should be different lines. So if you remember our slides, or if you remember what we discussed here, let me go back one step. If there are multiple configuration, and the best place is maybe not this, if you look your older JSON files, especially the app.json where you specify dependencies, you will see that each area in your dependency is actually was covered by a curly braces. So like, let's try to look here on my app.json. So dependencies are always like this, and then what you do is you use this, one particular dependency and then the other dependency. So if this is a purchase order, then these are your purchase lines. So each purchase line should be unique object, and they all should be clubbed inside this array. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, Saurabh.
Okay. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to kind of uh, pass a array here so that that get added into that array. So let's assume I'll call it as purchase line array. We'll define it. Let's see. Then that will also get passed here. And that will be used to kind of add that into that array. Now we all understand that this is array, and we have seen that we have something called as JSON array. Let me use the correct notification here. Okay. Then I can do a JSON array. Okay. So now what will happen is when it gets the JSON array, and then my JSON object is created after all these steps, then I can actually add my object inside my array using the similar command like we did last time, which is purchase line array dot add. And why this add is not showing me overloads? That's bad. If you can see it on your systems, you will see that there is one overload which also allows you to add a object inside an array, which I cannot show you right now. I don't know why it's not working for me. But you can actually pass this object and that will get added into that array. So now all my purchase lines, because this will be repeated, will get as an object and then they will be get added into the array. Now the next thing that I need to do is first define this array and then also somehow link this array to my actual purchase order. What I'm going to do is I'm going to define this as my return value. That this function will return the JSON array. So the definition is done for this. Once this get added, all the purchase lines get added here into the array. This array will be passed back to the caller function of this. So we'll have to do something so that this function gets called inside here. So as I was saying that it's a name value combination, the add can also actually add a purchase array into the JSON. What I'm going to do is again use my add. I'm still trying to show you. I don't know why it's not working. So I can say that these are my lines, and my lines are actually coming from this function, and I need to pass a purchase header. So what will happen is, because this function is returning an array, it will actually add lines array into the main JSON that we are trying to build. Does that make sense? And then
Yes,
I'll try
sorry.
to publish this. Let's see. Okay, there is an error somewhere. Where is it? I can't. Maybe I'll have to zoom out to see where is that error. Oh, okay. I forgot the semicolon here. Okay. So let's try to publish this, and now we'll test it. Okay. This got published, and I'll go to my purchase orders, and let's this time pick this one, and we'll do a download.json. It's downloaded. Let's open it. Here's the file. We'll copy the text and we will go back to our JSON lint. When I validate this, now I see that there is only one line in this order. So maybe I should have chosen a different order where there are multiple lines. Let's open one of those. If I can. Yeah, this one have 3. So let's try this one. Okay, so it should have 3 lines in the array. So now if you see, this is my order detail, and then it created an array here, which actually gets end here. So I don't know, this one may, or maybe I had something written somewhere, JSON formatter. Yeah, let me try that. That shows you in a very clear way. So, okay. And then let me copy this value. What you'll see now, that once I process this, I'll be able to see these entities as separate. So like I can actually collapse a line, or I can collapse all the line if I collapse the array. So this line is an array which again have each line as an object. So I hope so far so good. So now
Yes. Saurav, can you copy this URL into the chat?
I'll add that. So don't worry. Okay. So now coming back to the actual question, which Manish had about actually going into a third level of detail into
Right.
this, right? So what we'll do now is we'll follow the same, and in this time, what we'll do is we'll try to get the comments that are assigned to the purchase lines, which is a possibility in Business Central. So what we'll do is we'll go to the same way as we did last time. We'll create a procedure. This time, I'm not worried how I'll call it or not. But I'm trying to export my purchase line comments. The table here is my purchase line comments. Record purchase, record purchase. Why I'm not? Oh, maybe it's purchase command line. Okay. Okay. So we'll follow the same rules as we did last time. We'll create a JSON object, which in this case will be purchase line comment. And from the comments, we'll kind of write the same kind of details as we did last time, which is we'll do a add, and this time, because I'm kind of using this field caption because I like it, but you can also use like this, that the name of the value that is coming up is comment, and the value is from purchase line comments dot comment. And then there is, let's add date, and I'll say purchase line comments dot date. What will happen at this point, all the purchase line comments which are available in this table will actually be added into this JSON object, which we have defined. Now, what we need to do, as we did last time, is, okay, maybe I'm not following this, so I'll correct this here, comment line. Okay, happy. Okay, leave that. Okay. So as we did last time, that we created a recursive function, which then calls the child function to add the purchase line. So we'll kind of add a similar kind of function here, which is, say, and we'll say that get purchase line comment array, and we'll pass purchase line here because that's a child of purchase line. Dot purchase line. Following the same route, we'll do a purchase command line variable, just dot purchase command line. Okay. And kind of the same rules, which is purchase command line. I guess the primary key or the relation is based on document type. It's on purchase line dot document type. I guess the next field is document line number, which is purchase line dot line number. Okay, and then I guess there is one more, which is of document number. No, it's number here, I guess. Yeah, purchase line dot document number. With these three fields, we'll be able to get the specific comment lines based on that particular purchase line. So with this, I'll do the same thing as we did last time. I'll do a find set, and I'll do my repeat until, where we have the purchase comment line. If there is any value, and then I'll call my export purchase line comments, which will add that into the JSON object. As I said last time, there can be multiple values and each value will be an object. I'll have to get and pass a array in this case also, so that that value then gets added into that array. So what we'll do is we will add that here, comment line array type JSON array, and every time this add is complete, I'll add my purchase line comment array, purchase line comment JSON into that array. Now this array, as we did last time, need to be passed from here and need to be returned to the caller function. Okay. Now where we actually want to add, that becomes a question, because it's a line comment. It should actually be a child of this,
Right.
not a child of my purchase header, right? So what we'll do now is, where is my VS Code? Yeah, we'll call this function after my purchase line is actually created and before my purchase line array gets updated. So this is my purchase line array which gets updated with purchase line JSON. I can actually add my purchase line JSON, and I can do an add of, say, it comment, and I can do my get purchase line array comment array with my purchase line. So before it gets added into the main array of my purchase order, it actually adds all the comments that are associated with that particular line, and then that all goes up and get added into the purchase header object. Does that make sense, guys? Before I actually test it.
Yes,
Yes.
Saurav. Yes, yes.
Okay, so let's quickly run this. And I don't know why this is coming every time on this screen. But for this, we'll have to add some comments. I don't know, standard will have comments or not. This have 3 lines, so we'll use the same. And what we'll do is under the line, there should be a comment. And we'll say it comment 1. And we'll say it comment 2. And then we are not adding on the second line, but I'll go and add into the third line. Okay. And then it's, let's see. Okay. So now 106003 is actually available with the comments. So let's go ahead and download the JSON. That got downloaded. Let's copy this value and go to our, that is my JSON beautifier. Okay, here it is. Let's go up. Let's validate this. And we'll see this, which is, this is my purchase order. This is my line number 1. with two comments. So that becomes an array of comment, which is inside a array of lines. And then this is my second line where there are no comments. So this is an empty array. So yeah, it's, and then the third one, which have two arrays that we added. Now it's programmatically based on you and your requirement that if there are no comments, maybe you don't want to add an array. It's up to you. You can kind of tweak that code to check that comments exist or not. And if not, then you can just skip adding this into your line array. In the same way, if you don't want to add line, if let's say quantity is not there, so you can still do that in your code. So you can kind of tweak your code based on your requirement, because based on how the other side uh, is kind of trying to read that data which is there. So like if I only want to add the comment array, if there are comments, I can actually tweak it by saying if purchase comment exist based on purchase line, then this is not a function, but then we have the school extension here which will create that procedure. So we'll go there, and this one will do very simply this, which is we'll pick this and we'll say there. Okay, and then we'll copy this code again here, and we'll say that if, okay, this is my bad. Okay, this, okay, and then we'll say what I want to exit is purchase comment line dot find first. Okay, so if it is true, then it will exit true, and if it is true, then it will add or is empty true. So Microsoft suggests that you should use is empty. So if it is not empty, then it will return true, and if it will return true, then and only then it will add the comment array. So it's all based on how you want that kind of process to work, and how your other side of the engine want to process that data. Some people want, even if it is empty, they want that tag or that array, because that's how the code is written on the other side to read that data. Some system limits it to only add that array if there is data. So it's all based on how your kind of system wants it. If it doesn't care, then that's okay. If it does care, then you need to kind of decide your code based on the other party who is trying to read this. So now if you see, because there were no comments, it didn't even added that array of the comments. So it's up to
Right.
you how you want to code it, and it's up to the other party who is going to read it, because some kind of can hard code it that there should be a comment array, and then if it is empty, then they will not process it. Or some will say that okay, if there is no value inside comment, then don't even add that array into it. So it's up to you. Programmatically, it's not that hard to generate that JSON object with multiple combination and multiple values that you have. So
Right.
I'm open for questions if there are any. But that was kind of my take on the JSON process.
Right. So it was pretty smooth and much clear. It was simply clear concept.
Okay, sounds good, man.
This is Steve. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Based on how you were able to build that, it looks like you've done this before. This is not new to you, right?
Yeah, I've
So
done this before. Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, what are the use cases or scenarios where you've done this versus like creating custom JSON versus having someone use the API?
So, like, there are some uh, kind of external entities who read, or there are most of the entities nowadays who prefer JSON over XML.
Okay.
Earlier it was super common that people will ask for an
Yeah.
XML format and
Right.
will generate it. But JSON started getting so much attraction. Even in NavWord, there was a JSON
Okay.
object, not
Got it.
directly, but indirectly. So yeah, it's based on what the other party needs it, and then you can go as an in Business Central. It's super easy. Earlier, it was super complex in NavWord.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I guess the first question that comes to mind is if someone wants to consume BC API, if I ignore all the complexities of authentication and all that, I could theoretically point them to the standard Business Central API v1.0 or 2.0 endpoint,
Yeah.
which exposes JSON. But authentication is a complete nightmare, and so and perhaps simplifying the result set. Now, would it be possible for me to internally call the BC API code and maybe strip out some fields or simplify that or modify the format of that to produce a custom result? Does that make sense?
Of API?
Yeah, like, the Business Central API, they now have version 2.0,
Right.
and it behaves a certain way, but I need to be authenticated. Well, I guess you'd probably copy the code unit or the page, and you would just customize it to produce your own custom API.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
That's always been my style. My style normally is to see if you have anytime a customer requests a custom. The only thing that I know about Nav and Business piece of code is written somewhere in the product. You
Okay.
just need to identify where it is written and then try to simulate the similar behavior in your custom process also.
Okay.
Because it's a business solution. If I'm kind of trying to simulate a purchase order kind of process on a custom solution that a customer need, then it should follow the similar processes as Microsoft is doing it. So if I actually will have to build an API, I'll look for a standard API.
Right. Okay. I'm just wondering, like, what customer scenario have you run in this customer scenarios where they've needed to actually export the JSON, or is it typically more of an API call?
I haven't seen a scenario in Business Central, but yeah, this is what and maybe Manish can explain it because this was Manish's requirement. Manish,
Okay, got it.
yeah, do you have a situation where it's needed?
Yeah, we are integrating the data to website. So in this particular case, instead of passing through different web services, that all the tables, we need to accumulate this to a JSON and then
Yeah.
send it to the website.
Oh, okay. So the JSON file is the payload, and that's the easiest way for that
Right.
particular integration. Cool.
Right.
Okay, got it. And actually, I'm dealing with that with, say, an e-commerce website. We're having to pass in I think it's a CSV file, but yeah, JSON would work well. Okay, cool. I just want to have context so that I can know, like, when this
Yeah,
might be
right.
applicable. Cool.
That makes complete
Okay.
sense. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very neat. Awesome.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, regarding that import of JSON files. So maybe like what basically we need to that, like, because it's exporting, it seems to be easy, like, but importing, if you come to the part of importing the file, JSON file, is definitely makes some complexity in that.
We'll surely talk about it next time,
Yeah,
maybe for
okay.
sure. I'll if I get some time this week to prepare an example for this, we'll talk about it next week.
Okay.
Otherwise, maybe we'll postpone for a week or so.
Okay.
But
no problem.
yeah, the other two objects that we saw when we did, a controller space on JSON, those are kind of used for the imports, which is token and the value.
Okay.
So we'll go through that maybe in a separate call.
Okay. Yeah, Saurabh.
Okay, so just a heads up, next week will be the last call for this year. And then starting next year, because it's getting super cold here where I am in India. So I might change time starting January 2nd. I guess that's what the first day in January, to an hour before than this current time. Does that work for everybody? Because right now it's 11 p.m. my time and super cold.
Yes,
Yeah,
Saurabh, that's okay.
that's fine.
Steve, is it early for you or is it that's okay?
It's yeah, it's fine. I mean, you do what you need to do. I get it. It would be 7:30 a.m. for me, and I actually had a call at 7 a.m. Prior to this, so no worries.
Okay, yeah.
I'll try to make it. Yep.
Yeah, but it's just for a month or so. Once the snow goes from here and it gets a little warmer, then we'll come back to our normal schedule. But right now it's super hard to stay up this late.
No
Okay,
problem.
so yeah, we'll see you next week then. And those who cannot make it next week, uh, you know, enjoy your holidays with Christmas and New Year, and wishing you and your family a happy New Year and a Christmas. It's Christmas.
Same to
Same
you,
to you,
Saurabh.
Saurabh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Saurabh.
Thanks, man.